Okay, with the lockdown and the fact that the museum is closed, it gives us an opportunity to get the Tiger into the workshop and do some jobs that we've been wanting to get stuck into for some time. The visitors come here to see us, so obviously the time we get in the workshop is limited. There's a number of things that we want to have a look at, and I'll just take you around some of the jobs that we're going to do with her now. We're looking at the rear end of the Tiger, and we're looking in at the magnetos that you can see just to orientate you. Either side of the magnetos are the fan drives. There's one box there. Quite a complicated process. We've got to get all the coolant pipes off, disconnect that PTO shaft down there, and then withdraw the whole of the fan gearbox. That pulls out a shaft, not unlike a shaft on a Land Rover actually, that drives these two fans through the use of bevel gears. It's combination of gears that turns a horizontal drive that you can see turning around here. And it turns that horizontal drive into a vertical drive, which you see up here, and that spins the fan. And the way it does that is through what they call a bevel gearbox system, where there's a gear wheel on this shaft and there's a gear wheel on the bottom of here, which I can show you, and the two of them mesh together, and that provides the drive. Now one thing, we're on the rear left now. We're looking in at what would be the left-hand fuel tank, or the upper one. There's another fuel tank that's underneath it, and the top one has developed a leak. Here we are looking at that fuel tank that we're going to pressure test. Nice piece of work there. You can see all the studding in it. We're hoping that it's one of those studs that is actually giving us the leak. It will be a relatively easy fix. And just going down the line here, you can see the selection of decks that we've had to remove. I'll give you some idea of the thickness of these things and potentially how heavy they are. There's the radiator and fuel tank cover there, and then over here we've got the centre deck cover and the opposite radiator cover on the other side. Okay, here we are. We've got a rare view of underneath the Tiger now because we're stood in the pit. You can see the inside of the wheels there, and as we go around, all this armour on the bottom. And for those of you that think that if we drop a spanner or something we can easily get it out, you can see that there's no access panels at all apart from right up at the front there where the driver sits, and the only two are these at the rear, one on that side and one over here. And just to give you an idea of scale, there's my hand, so not too much. So you've got to be very careful when you're working on the top that you don't drop stuff in the bottom, because most of the time there's no way getting it out unless you've got extremely long arms that bend a lot. Quick update on the Valentine. You were doing that suspension overhaul. Developments on that one over the past couple of weeks have been the dry fitting of the 4 suspension units. These are without the shock absorbers that we're doing some other work on. They are. You'll see them all assembled to dry fit, so in other words they're ready. We just need to put the grease and the oil in them once the shock absorbers are done, and then we can start fitting them to the vehicle.
We're just in the process of fitting the new fuel tank they've had made for the Valentine. The old one was an original fuel tank that had been repaired many times, and it just got to the point where we couldn't fix it anymore. So we invested the money, had a new tank made with modern materials. It shouldn't corrode again like the old one. It should be good for the rest of the life of the vehicle. And so it's been manufactured, just painted it, put the paddy back at the back, and I'll shortly fit it back in the vehicle.
The historic team are doing a number of tasks, some we've already talked about, such as the Valentine. I just want to introduce you to the Comet. We are going to be doing a full coolant system overhaul of it, including the radiators and associated parts. And this is just an introduction really to take you through what we've taken out so far. And we're just about to prep in order to do a service on its cooling system. So here we are looking into the transmission compartment, and you can see the hole where the radiators used to be. Unusually, when you would normally come across radiators that fold down on top of the engine or the main assemblies of the tank, these actually go in a more conventional way, with straight drop in behind our Meteor engine, which is lurking under there. Okay, the reason we're doing the coolant system on the Comet is where we found that when it's hanging around in between events with the engine running, it was starting to overheat. So we think the efficiency of the cooling system is suffering. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to improve on that, is to clean out the radiators with some flushing fluid. But that's not always the problem. Over years, a lot of debris gets in between the gills on the radiator, and we need to wash that out and get that out. Sometimes they're bent and we have to straighten them in order to allow efficient airflow going through. And I'll show you some of those problems now. Okay, so if you look at this radiator there, not too bad on the damaged front, but you cannot see very much light through there, and that's not ideal. That means it could do with a gentle washout. Over here, got the header tank and one of the guards that goes in front of it. And these mesh guards here will go on one side of the radiators to protect them from damage. So looking at the pack from this angle, then you can see one of the two cooling fans as the air is drawn through the radiators in order to cool the coolant inside it, and the fans are the things that make that happen. And if you look at one of the tensioner pulleys here, you can see it's really shiny, like it's been slipping. And if you look at the belt, you can see some witness marks on the belt there. It would indicate that, you know, the tensioners are fully up at the moment, so the belt is slipping. That has a consequence of the fans not turning as fast as they should be, and can also have create problems with cooling the engine.
So the switchboard out of the Comet had a number of issues last year, mainly due to age, so it's getting a rewire. It's not a restoration, it's having a proper rewire so it'll be functionally working correctly. Okay. And finish the rewiring of the switchboard. You can see there, it's a complicated job, but it's done now. I'm just doing a quick test on the bench before we install it back in the vehicle. There's no point if we've got a mistake or a problem on it, run it back in and then discovering it, so we'll just do that now, quick test. Involves a bit of shorting out and putting a bit of temporary power on it, but we should be there or thereabouts shortly.
Remember, we were doing the coolant system on the Comet. At the moment it's all been put back in and tested, it's working really well. Just do some tree here. You can see the header tank there, the two radiators back in, all the associated couplings, and then right down there in the bottom you can see the new fan belts that we've put on, having adjusted the tensioners.
One of the advantages of the Tank Museum having quite a number of running vehicles and such a range of vehicles is not just that you can come and see them drive around, but also they're an asset that the Army can also use. So we're here today on a bit of a blustery October day. We're up on the training area at Bovington, and we're helping the Army with an exercise that's looking at how you paint vehicles, what seems to work in the landscape, and what's the best camouflage scheme for the modern British Army. So out there at this moment, there's a few of our vehicles, and there's also a vehicle from the modern British Army.
My name is Charlie Brunskill. I'm the Major that's in charge of the infantry fighting vehicles, armoured, here at the Armoured Trials and Development Unit in Bovington. So we take future technology and current technology and in-service equipment, and we look to optimise it and look at with an eye on the horizon about what's coming and how we can integrate it into the future force. If you want to try something in a robust environment, come to Dorset. It's not as kind on equipment as you might think, and also give it to a group of soldiers. And we take things for past their intended breaking points, and we make sure that we test them for the future. Camouflage experiment is one part of what we do. We've broken about an 18-month chunk of time down into what we call 6 sprints, and these sprints deal with power, hide and deceive, which is what we're dealing with today. We're looking at future mobility and future protection beyond line of sight. And we're looking at whether the current trajectory of British Army vehicles of only painting them solid green is the right thing, or should we be looking at multi-colour spectrum camouflage schemes. And what you'll see hopefully after this is our digital offering, and whether that offers any benefits over and above what you and I would deem as the normal camouflage like I'm wearing, or even World War II style camouflage. So I'll write a trials report at the end of this, and I will hopefully recommend whether the solid green buff that you see on the vehicles driving around is fit for purpose, because we augment that with live camouflage, with extra bits of camouflage that we put on the vehicles, or do we in fact need to revisit and should we go to a 2, 3, 4 colour paint scheme? And I'll write that report and send it to the powers that be, and hopefully will affect change for the better. If you wanted to look at the evolution of armour, there's only one place to come, and that's right on our doorstep. We've got perhaps the best collection of what's gone and what will be in the what has been in the past. So we don't have to waste any more money reinventing the wheel. We can look at a legacy fleet and we can get it out in the area and compare and contrast. So it's amazing.
I work for DSTL and have recently graduated from the graduate scheme that they operate. As part of the graduate scheme that we do, we have to do secondments where we rotate through different military organisations and even some companies. As part of my secondment, I'm down here working with ATDU and Babcock on the training area, looking at different camouflage schemes for future military vehicles, as evidenced by the digital camouflage that we've got behind us. We're hoping to keep it like this as much as possible, just because I'm fairly certain the Babcock paint staff might kill us if we ask them to paint it green after all the effort they've put into putting it into this amazing pattern here. What we're doing this week is we're doing some observation trials where we've got volunteers who will be placed at an observation post, and they've got to detect vehicles within the terrain. Each vehicle is in a different camouflage scheme, and basically we're trying to assess which scheme is best. So whether that's affected by kind of blob pattern, matte paint, light near matte paint, what colours, whether a digital scheme, which is our novel camouflage scheme that we've got in test, and basically we're trying to see what's best. And then that'll feed into a report where we decide what to do in future. It's brilliant fun. I mean, the great thing about getting the Tank Museum vehicles in is we've actually got a wide variety of vehicles. Not only are they in different colour schemes, which makes it easier for us, but it also adds a bit of a vehicle identification factor for the volunteers who are doing the observation things, which adds another kind of, does this digital scheme break up the pattern? Does the matte scheme hide certain vehicle features better? And that's the main reason why we've brought the, asked for the Tank Museum vehicles to be loaned for us.
We have a fantastic selection of books, models, clothes and other gifts on the Tank Museum online shop. When you buy from our online shop, you are supporting the Tank Museum charity, and that means we can carry on caring for our collection and producing this content. If you have supported us already, thank you very much, subscribe and do keep watching.